The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Houston Rockets fans really thought that Steph Curry was not going to get his. Man, this team needs a case study on why they cannot hang on to leads. The sloppy basketball comes back, the careless turnovers, the inability to stop Houston, specifically Steven Adams, really changed the course of this game when his size came into play. Şengün was awesome, but you can rely on a couple of things. One, Steph Curry. 31 in the game. 2, playoff Jimmy. He's real, 25, and played much better than just the points say. And 3, I don't know whether you can always rely on it, but you'll absolutely take some Moses Moody stones down the stretch. He hits big bucket after big bucket. Kylan, let's start with you. What were kind of the defining moments from this game that really made you feel like the Warriors were able to sneak this one out?
It was that second quarter run for me, Chuck. That's where the Warriors defense took over this game. Not just were they getting stops in that first 6 minutes of the second quarter, they also were forcing turnovers. It was 5 steals for the Dubs, and that allowed them to get out in transition. You're going up against the trees. You don't have the most size. Get those bunnies on the other end by playing good defense. Like I said, not just stops, though, really being disruptive and getting the Rockets out of their offensive system and then stealing the basketball. To me, that was the difference during that stretch, which I think it was an 18-3 or 2 run when it was all said and done for the Dubs. And once you have that separation, it's about protecting the lead, managing the game. Yes, there were definitely some turnover concerns in the third quarter, but then the other thing that you saw in the fourth was playoff Jimmy and the fact that the Dubs now have 2 closers. You've got Steph Curry, a guy who you know can come through in the clutch, but now you also have Jimmy Butler. So when teams are double and tripling, draping Steph, face guarding him, whatever they want to throw at him, you have another option. And a guy who can score in a different way, I think, is also crucial because Jimmy, the mid-range master, was on display tonight. It's ridiculous stuff. And again, a guy who can just play physical, someone who can score in the paint, which the Warriors have not had. No offense, Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. I think we all know that, the writing is on the wall. Those two are, if you feed it to them inside, the defense is not collapsing and going crazy. And Jimmy Butler can draw defensive attention inside the paint, or he can go up and score through traffic. I mean, the guy's ridiculous through contact. So those are the 2 things that stood out to me. I think the way that Steph and Jimmy showed up huge in that fourth quarter. In addition to, you mentioned, I thought Moses Moody hit a couple of big shots with that corner 3 with a minute to go. And then he had a fadeaway mid-range shot with a couple minutes left when the Rockets were really starting to close the gap. It was late in the shot clock. I thought that was a clutch shot. And when you have Jimmy and Steph playing the way they were playing, like, that's all you need from your role players. Yeah. Just do enough. Just hit timely baskets. And so I'm really encouraged by what we saw from the Dubs during that defensive stretch, especially in the second quarter, and then closing out this game, hitting some big shots.
Kolsky, Batman and Robin, man. We heard the theme again after the game where on the TNT broadcast, Jimmy comes out and says, that's Batman for you. Sometimes he just falls from a building and ruins your dreams. That's what Batman does. And I'm just here to, provide enough support for Steph and protect this man at all costs. So when we do win an NBA championship, I like to think that I can help, but Steph Curry is going to be the one that gets the job done. How about the fact that Rockets fans were so confident in them just having the size, the switchability, the length, the versatility, and the face guarding capabilities from Thompson to where they legit thought that Steph Curry was going to be bottled up this entire series? That was debunked game 1.
You're not going to have another 3-point Steph Curry game. Sorry, I just had to say that. Kudos to you, Kolsky.
How can Rockets fans fall for that again? You guys have been here before, unless you just joined up. What's happening here? He's done this to you enough times. Somebody look up Steph Curry's playoff stats in Houston. He eviscerates them for fun. It's, I guess Amen Thompson is a legitimately exciting player who has a great future in this league, but it's not the future yet. And I would say the same about a lot of these Rockets guys. And for me, what you just said, Kylan's second takeaway, that's the big thing for me tonight. Look, the Warriors didn't play great. There were a lot of problems with tonight's game. Kylan mentioned the turnovers. You're not going to win a lot of NBA playoff games in 2025 with 95 points, but the Rockets are not in their class, and they do not have answers in the half court to deal with the Warriors defense. And they just really don't have anybody. I mean, tonight was a very on-brand performance for a team that self-professes to be led emotionally by Dylan Brooks. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to tell you. That's what's going to happen when Dylan Brooks is your guy. He's an unserious basketball player, and ultimately the Rockets were not a serious playoff team in tonight's game. And it's a bummer that the Warriors didn't blow them out, because they really should have. But on the other hand, it's kind of a treat, because the fact that the game was close in the fourth quarter means we get to see the thing that, if the Warriors have any shot at doing some damage in this year's playoffs, that's the difference maker. It's Steph Curry and it's Jimmy Butler in the fourth quarter. And I can't believe Jimmy had us all wondering if playoff Jimmy was going to happen. It's definitely happening.
Right in front of our eyes. That's what consistently happens with this man. It doesn't make any sense how every single season he'll have regular season games where he'll put up 4 shots and score 6 points, and then the playoffs roll around. He plays 42 minutes. He goes 10 of 19, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, 25 points, and a remarkable plus 14 in the game, only fouling once. That's a topic that I want to bring up, is the physicality that the refs allowed in this game, minus a couple minutes of the third quarter to start, where they called 5 fouls in 1 minute. Aside from that, like, they're hand slapping balls. There, people poking the ball away from behind. There's a lot of reaching going on, a lot of grabbing, and not a ton of it getting called. And I thought that's how the Warriors played a little different than they did the last time these two teams matched up, specifically from their leader, Steph Curry, on defense. I thought he was getting real physical with Jalen Green. He played awesome. And it was a case of, like, Steph basically saying, look, if this is how they're going to play me, I'm going to play them the same way and make the Zebras call it. And they didn't, Kylan.
Yeah, I think that definitely was a factor in the loss. I mean, I think last time they played Houston, this team was all up in Steph's grill, and there were a lot of calls that did not go Golden State's way. I actually thought that last game especially was not a well-officiated game. Just, I'm going to say, I don't like to always point at the refs and losses, but I think that they let a lot go on Steph Curry in that game where the Rockets held him to just 3 points. I think that was a major factor. Here's the thing for me. I don't know if it's as much about the physicality for me in terms of what the Rockets are doing defensively, as much as I think that the Warriors are able to adapt. And I thought they handled the pressure really well. I think there were stretches of the game where we saw concerns in terms of the turnovers, and that's where you see the Rockets playing really physical. But I think the offense has to be adaptable. And one thing that stood out that I liked is the fact that the Rockets early on went with a really big lineup, and the Dubs struggled for a period of time where they were, and the same thing, honestly, in the third quarter. That's one of my biggest concerns actually moving forward in the series, is not necessarily how it's being called, but the physicality on the glass for me is the big issue. Because when the Rockets went on that huge run in the third quarter, I mean, there were multiple possessions where they weren't just getting 1 O board, they're getting 2 O boards, 3 O boards. You can't give this team 3 opportunities to score the basketball. You just can't do it against a good team in a playoff series.
They suck at shooting, but when they get one of, they
Correct.
get 3 opportunities, eventually you're going to hit one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that, and we know this is a great offensive rebounding team. We know it's a great rebounding team, but the Dubs hung with them actually last time they played, because that was something I was looking back at the last couple box scores. And I think the Warriors actually did a good job. Like, they were almost dead even in rebounding. The problem was Steph Curry only scored 3 points. But this time around, that was my big concern. It wasn't necessarily the physicality in terms of the face guarding. I think the Warriors were able to work around the pressure, maybe dealt with some turnovers that were unnecessary. But I think for me, more it's the physicality on the glass. And if they're going to let a lot go, the Dubs have to play tougher. I have to put a body on someone. I thought that there were moments where Quentin Post was a little too soft when he was in the game, whether it was going up for O boards or that one dunk stuck with me. I'm like, man, you got to go up harder than that. Was it the first or second quarter? And the fact of the matter is the Dubs don't have a dominant physical big. So, like, how are you going to deal with the way this Houston Rockets team rebounds the basketball when you don't have a dominant big? I think that could be the big concern moving forward in the series, because Houston didn't shoot the ball well. You mentioned when they start shooting the ball well, and then they're also getting their own misses, I think that's where the Dubs could run into some trouble. They've got to deal with that physicality on the glass.
Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd Gen.
Boston Celtics get the win in game 1 over the Orlando Magic. Boston Celtics get the win 103-86. 103, not a lot of points for the Boston Celtics, but 86, very few points for the Orlando Magic. Later on, we'll get into some of these numbers and why this really is kind of like a numbers. The numbers tell you that this is what we should have expected. This is kind of what the stats were pointing us to, this kind of game. The Orlando defense, what they did to Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, mostly Jason Tatum coming up. I want to just start here with Drew Holiday, because Drew is the guy who kind of changed the game in the second half. The Celtics in the first half, they won the first quarter 26-18. They lost the second quarter 31-22. That second quarter, a lot of second chance points, a lot of offensive rebounds. I didn't like the way the Celtics were giving up offensive rebounds. Second chance points in the second quarter, 5-5, but the Celtics gave up 10 offensive rebounds in the first half. The rebounding was not where it needed to be. The Celtics played slow. The Celtics gave up too many extra possessions, and it didn't hurt them. They weren't crushed by second chance points, but by giving up all of those extra possessions to the Orlando Magic, the Celtics weren't able to get out and run. They weren't able to kind of dictate the pace, and it hurt them in the second quarter. Orlando got big performances from Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. That second quarter was a big one for both of them. They combined for 20 points. Banchero had 12 of his 36 in that second quarter. I got my box score over here. The second quarter was a bit of a disaster. To give up 63% shooting to the Orlando Magic, 31 points in a quarter, is kind of unforgivable. The Magic are capable behind Banchero of putting up some points, but that percentage is ridiculous. 5 of 9 shooting. Banchero went 2 of 3. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope went 2 of 3. Joe Mazzulla called a couple of those timeouts, was very upset with how the team was performing. Holiday comes in the second half, the third quarter, changes the entire game, the complexion of the game by, playing defense, but also pushing the pace. He had a couple of plays where pushing it off of makes, just forcing Orlando to pick up their matchups, to understand who do I have? Do you have him? Do I have him? Okay, no. Like that level of just a brief amount of confusion, a second of no, I'm going to him. No, you're going to him. Okay, I'm going to go back this way. It just opens things up. It forces them into a little bit of rotation. It forces them into a little bit of confusion. That is enough to open up the 3-point looks that the Celtics were lacking. Now, the Celtics only got 37 3-point attempts up, but in the second half, they were able to put up a few. Let's see, in the third quarter, they put up 10, and in the fourth quarter, they put up 11. So 21 of those. So that would have been a 42. That's a 42 3-pointer pace. It's a little bit more on par of what they're used to. I mean, the Celtics are used to putting up 48, 49, 50. But in the first half, because the Celtics were going up against the set defense, they weren't able to generate a lot of those shots. I said it on last week with the preview podcast. I said it to Philip Rossman Reich. I said it to Tom Westerholm. The Celtics' best chance here at bucking the trend, bucking the statistical trend, is rebound, get out in transition, push the pace. You got to play faster than the Orlando Magic. You got to go out there and even if you're matching the field goal attempts, you got to play with a good tempo. You got to play with that pace and tempo that forces the Magic to make decisions and not get set. The Celtics were playing against a set defense that bothered them in the first half. They got caught up in the call it pigeon hunting game where they were just looking for the mismatches. And I think this is where it got a little too bogged down. You know, why Kristaps Porzingis didn't have his best game, 1 of 8. Super physical Orlando team. Physicality does bother Porzingis a little bit, but he was really adamant about trying to take these mismatches into the post. I want to see Porzingis out in the 3-point line. I want to see him pick and pop more than anything. And I think the way the Celtics should attack in the half court is quick decisions, quick ball movement, quick, just that 0.7, that 0.5 basketball, or 0.7, 0.2 of a second is, you know, we deal with that. But that quick decision, drive, get off the ball quickly. Don't sit there and hunt just mismatches. Don't just go out there and be like, where's Cole Anthony if he's in the game, or where's, you know, whoever, Corey Joseph. You have to be able to move quickly, move the ball, move your body, force Orlando to kind of adjust to you and your pace and your style. Holiday in the third quarter did a great job of that. The Celtics were starting to get up then at that point, better shots, more 3-point attempts. They were rebounding better. They were defending better. That's where this entire game changed. Holiday with a perfect third quarter, 3 of 3 from 3. Was it 12 points? What did he finish with? 9 points. He was a plus 12. That's I keep focusing on the 12. 9 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, and no turnovers for Holiday. That was a great quarter. They got 10 points out of Jaylen Brown there. They got 6 points out of Derek White, and it was just a nice balanced scoring attack with Holiday understanding. I keep calling Holiday the adult in the room. Not that this isn't a very veteran team, and like I don't want to disrespect what Tatum and Brown are, but I call Holiday the adult in the room because he's just so poised and understands, okay, this is what this game needs, right? He doesn't get too caught up in, I think, some of these, like Tatum gets caught up in the mismatch hunting a little bit. Jaylen does as well. Holiday's just like, okay, you know what? We need to push a little bit. So I'm going to go out there and push. And that was exactly that's where this game changed. The Celtics went into the first half. They were down 1. And then they came out of the third quarter up 11. They won that third quarter 30-18. They won the fourth quarter 25-19. We had some garbage time at the end of the third quarter. At the end of the fourth quarter, it took Orlando the whole third quarter plus 7 minutes of the fourth. So 19, almost 20 minutes to get to 32 points after scoring 31 points in the second quarter alone. So the Celtics third quarter, pivotal.
The Cleveland Cavaliers open up the playoffs with a 121-100 win over the Miami Heat.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
The Cavs, I didn't think played their best game on Sunday, but they certainly played well enough to win. And I was really impressed, with the play of Donovan Mitchell. And it wasn't just what he did offensively. He scored 30 points. He didn't necessarily shoot the ball that well from 3. I thought he was fantastic inside the arc. He had one layup in the second half that was a left-hand reverse layup that was just absolutely nasty. He had that going. He was able to get to the spots that he wanted to. The shots just didn't necessarily fall. He hit a couple of big ones later in the game. But overall, it wasn't a great shooting night from him. But I still thought he had a really good game. And what was most important about Mitchell's game to me was all of the other things that he did, right? Like the scoring was there. The 30 points, very important. Cavs needed that. I thought that was a statement. We'll talk about that in a second. But the fact that he had 4 steals, the fact that it felt like every time there was a jump ball, every time there was a loose ball, it felt like Donovan Mitchell was on the ground. He was getting his hand basically on as many deflections as he could. He forced a jump ball with Bam Adebayo, which of course, he lost the jump ball because Bam is going to win that 9 out of 10 times. But the fact that he was diving on the floor for loose balls, I really think says a lot about the statement that the Cavs needed to make. And I don't think they needed to come out and necessarily play their best ever playoff game because of what OKC did earlier on Sunday, or win this game by 40 points to really send a message across the league. I think they needed to send a message to the Miami Heat that, because Miami is known for doing all the little things correctly, right? Like they're a team that, and they put it on their floor at one point. And I'm glad it's not there anymore because it was hideous. But at one point they put it on their floor. Like they're going to outwork you, out hustle you, do everything. And I thought that the way Donovan played on Sunday night was saying, we know what you guys are about. And I think the Cavs have a lot of respect for Miami. I think they have more respect for Miami, despite the fact that they finished 37-45 this year, despite the fact that they were the 10 seed before the play-in. I think they have more respect for Miami than they would like a normal number 8 seed. I do think that Miami has their attention in a way that I'm just not entirely sure one of the other potential 8 seeds would have. So I do think that's a good thing. But I thought the way Donovan played was a message that we're not going to be outworked. Just because we're 64 win team, just because we're the 1 seed, doesn't mean that we're expecting to float on by in this series. I thought his play really was that kind of message. I thought he competed really hard defensively. I thought Darius Garland competed really hard defensively. I thought Evan Mobley played relatively well defensively. Overall, like that is the area where I was impressed with the Cavs the most, was probably what they did on the defensive end. And it wasn't perfect. I do think that the defensive effort the Cavs put forth on Sunday, and I understand Miami shot the ball well from outside, but it did feel like a lot of those were some pretty contested looks. Like if you were to simulate what the Cavs did defensively over a 10-game stretch against Miami, like if they play this exact game 10 times over, I don't know how many times Miami shoots a better percentage from beyond the arc, which was, I believe, 41.6%. I don't know how many times they outperform that, right? It kind of felt like, okay, are they going to shoot the ball better than this? And, you know, Tyler Hero had a fine game shooting. He made a few triples like that. Those things are going to happen because they do have good shooters. It's not like this Heat team is just a bunch of pushovers, but I did think that the defensive effort from the Cavs was something that we needed to see, and it showed up. And I thought that is something that Cavs fans should be happy about going into game 2, is that the Cavs played, I thought, well defensively. They put a lot of pressure, especially early in this game. They put a lot of pressure on the basketball when Miami had it. It felt like their ball pressure in the half court was so much closer to the half court line than it was during the regular season. It felt like they really amped things up as far as that goes. And I thought that was a good sign. I think that's just going to be something that we're going to see more of as the postseason rolls along, as the series rolls along. And then, of course, one of the other huge stories from this game, Ty Jerome. Ty was remarkable. First ever playoff game. And, you know, I was sitting in my seat during the fourth quarter. He had 16 of his 28 points in the fourth quarter. He was just absolutely impeccable. I was sitting in my seat and I was thinking, man, remember when Kobe Altman and Kenny Atkinson had their preseason availability? It was the Friday before training camp started in Independence at the practice facility. And Kobe was asked about Ty Jerome, and he called him the MVP of September. And that was a quote that has certainly made its rounds across social media. You've heard it on this podcast. You've probably heard it referenced on the broadcast before. And when I heard that come out of Kobe's mouth, it's like, okay, I don't know how we're getting there. Like, I'm not sure that I can believe that. But if you would have told me on that day, hey, Ty Jerome, who has never played in a playoff game, has played 15 minutes for the Cavs, was like borderline NBA player at a certain point in his career on a 2-way contract with Golden State. He's going to, one, be named a finalist for Sixth Man of the Year, which he was earlier before the game on Sunday, and then scored 28 points in his postseason debut. There's going to be a point in this game where the Miami Heat are going to trap him near half court to get the basketball out of his hands. I don't think anybody would have believed you. I would not have believed that. Would you have? Like, what he's done this year has been remarkable, and how well he played on Sunday night was incredibly impressive. Now, can the Cavs count on 28 points from Ty Jerome every single night? No, of course not. That's not what Ty's going to be able to do in the postseason. But the fact that he's capable of this, I think, makes his Cavs team so much more dangerous. I really do think that this is something that makes them so much more dangerous. And I do think it was fair to wonder, just because Ty had not been there before. Ty had not played in the playoffs before. I thought it was fair to wonder, okay, what is he going to look like when the lights get a little brighter? Because it's not the easiest thing to do. It's not the easiest thing to go from a regular season nice story to, hey, it's real. The playoffs are here. And Ty did that in just an incredible way on Sunday. I thought he was great. I thought Kenny Atkinson had a really good game as well. Overall, I think there's a lot of stuff for the Cavs to be happy about. And moving forward, I think that they're in a good spot. Kenny Atkinson, after the game, talks about Miami, and he said something that stuck out to me. And that was that this Miami team is going to make the Cavs better. Now, the Cavs should win this series. I picked them to win this series in 5 games. Nothing has changed in my opinion as far as that goes. Like, I still think that there are going to be games closer than this one. You know, I said I thought there were going to be a couple of blowout games in this series. Maybe this counts as one. I thought Miami did a good job in this game of keeping things relatively close for the most part. But Kenny said that this Heat team is going to make them better. And I couldn't agree with that more, because you see a lot of teams that particularly are in Miami's position where they're the 8th seed. The Cavs are heavy favorites. It was the 3rd game in 5 days for Miami in 3 different cities. And all 3 games have been really, really important to the Heat. And I do think it would have been really easy for Miami to just kind of, okay, the Cavs are up by 16 in the second quarter. We're going to lie down. We're just not going to fight back. This is kind of, we're already starting down 1-0. We're going to lick our wounds here. We're going to get back to the hotel. We're going to rest, and we're going to come back and give it our all on Wednesday in game 2. I could have seen that being the case for most teams. It's not the Miami Heat. It's not who the Miami Heat are. The Miami Heat are going to play 48 minutes every single game, like it or not. They did that for the most part on Sunday. I don't know if they played a full 48, probably closer to like 45 minutes before the Cavs really pulled away. But the Cavs, I do think, are going to get past Miami. I think they're going to win this series. I know that's not some bold statement to say, oh, the 1 seed's going to win a series. Of course, right? Like, we all kind of understand that. But what I do think is that the Cavs are going to be better for facing Miami. I talked about before the series that I didn't think this was the path of least resistance, and it's not. Facing Atlanta would have been easier in the short term for the Cavs. But as long as they do get through the series, which again, I expect them to, and remain healthy while doing so, I think that they will be mentally tougher, because I think this is a bigger challenge. And I think in the long run, that's a really good thing. I think that entering a series potentially next round against the Indiana Pacers, if both teams get there, the Cavs will be better tested than they would have had they played Atlanta, had they played Chicago. I think that is something that benefits them. If they ultimately get to the conference finals and see the Boston Celtics, I think that being able to draw back on the experiences that they'll have from this series is a really good thing. And I think it's a really good thing for Kenny Atkinson in particular, because if you look up and down the Eastern Conference, how many coaches do you see and say, you know what? I don't think Kenny has a distinct coaching advantage over that guy. He does not have a distinct coaching advantage over Eric Spoelstra. He doesn't. You know, in the next round, I don't think he has one over Rick Carlisle. I think that's really close. The rest of the East, I would take Kenny Atkinson over every other coach in the Eastern Conference. But I think that Spo is going to push Kenny to be a better coach. And I think ultimately that's something that will be a really, really good thing for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, there are so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Nico Iamaleava to UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins.
I've been trying my best to keep up with the latest twists and turns of this Nico saga. And after it was initially reported, Nico to UCLA, then I was like, well, now we're waiting. And now we're waiting a couple of more days. We'll finally hear on Easter Sunday, we get a report from Pete Thamel that Nico is going to be heading to UCLA. It's still not official. And if you know anything about this situation, you still have to reserve some sort of doubt. But in the end, Pete Thamel's reported it. I've seen On Three's Pete Nakos be like, yep, it looks like what is Joey Aguilar going to do? But it's Pete Thamel of ESPN with this report that the UCLA staff has informed the team's current quarterbacks of the expected transfer of Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava to UCLA. And this is what the rest of his post says. It shows that there's a key step between the discussions of UCLA and Nico, and that there's a formal decision expected to be in the near future. Okay, so that's what his official post says. They've told the team that their quarterback is most likely going to be Nico. All right. And what Pete Nakos of On 3 was talking about is that, hey, actually, Joe Aguilar has been looking decent and pretty solid in spring practice with the new offensive coordinator, Tito Sunseri, which is fascinating because UCLA, if you're a fan that was there, if you've seen any coverage, if you saw the social media posts, the Bruins just had their Friday night showcase. They just showcased all their 7 quarterbacks. And now you're getting closer to the spring game. You're only a few weeks away. Just a couple more practices left in spring ball. But what are you going to do to teach the man the offense? Now, is a short spring practice going to put any UCLA quarterback that far ahead of Nico? I don't think so. That's why you go through a whole offseason. You can study the playbook. You can go through the whole fall camp where you take rep after rep after rep. But here we are. This saga continues to UCLA. So whatever it is, Deshaun Foster decided with his staff, with the program, as a university as a whole, to go after this kid. They said this is a good opportunity, and we will take our chance on Nico. I've already been on the record about how the Bruins should avoid this situation. But if he's coming, you got to support the kid. I've seen Kirk Herbstreit back this kid. I've seen pretty good reports about Nico himself. Whether it's about his character, you can debate about the throws. I know the Tennessee fans are still in this like, okay, what, we don't like you. You know what it is. And I've been like, this situation's kind of a unique one, right? It's not often you get a quarterback of this caliber at a reduced rate, I would assume, because I've seen the reports of $1.75 million, which is less than what he got at Tennessee, versus, okay, it's the headache isn't necessarily Nico, it's the drama, it's the circus around him that UCLA has to be ready to deal with. And let's be honest, obviously UCLA, I love them, you'll love them if you're watching the show probably, or maybe you just want to make fun of me, whatever it is. We're passionate about this. But everybody is now going to have their eyes on this UCLA situation and hopefully bring some buzz, hopefully bring some energy. I'm not sure if that'll happen to the spring game, if he's going to come in right away and be eligible to do anything that way. But when they're playing Utah on that season opening game, I think some networks will be like, hey, let's get this one into a primetime slot and see what this kid does on opening night against a Utah team that last year was expected to be pretty good with Cam Rising. You just don't know. But hey, UCLA with Nico, this could be it will be a fascinating year. All right. Again, this is the Pete Thamel report that UCLA has gone to their quarterbacks, one of their $15 billion on their roster, including Joey Aguilar, saying, hey, Nico's coming to UCLA. All right. At this point, you just got to applaud the effort of Deshaun Foster, relentlessness, patience, and as long as they didn't overpay, which I'm pretty sure they're nowhere near $4 million. I don't even think they're paying as much as Tennessee. And if they're going to make the splash with the new offensive coordinator, Deshaun Foster, I think as recently as that Friday night showcase or in a couple of those media availabilities, he said he's liked what the offensive line's been able to do. And of course, believe the Iamaleava camp, they wanted offensive linemen and receivers. So they went to UCLA, if that's to be believed, as to why they left Tennessee instead of NIL money. UCLA's offensive line seemingly improved. Obviously, that is yet to be proven in a game against other competition, against Big Ten beef, if you will, non-conference beef when they play Utah up front. But the Bruins have done this. Whatever. I can only criticize it so much. They went after it. At this point, the spoken actions of Deshaun Foster are louder than any goofy press conference he had at Big Ten Media Day. This is a swing, a huge swing. Ironically, it's another swing for UCLA in the last few seasons at a class of 2023 kid. All right. You look at Nico, you look at Dante. Is UCLA making the same mistake twice? Okay. I don't know, but they're going forward, and this is going to lead to a mass exodus. What would be fascinating for me to see is where did UCLA find a way to negotiate a multi-year deal out of this, right? This is Nico, who is a redshirt sophomore. He's going to have 3 years of eligibility left. I highly doubt that he's going to play all 3 of those years if he's injury-free and playing pretty good. I'm not sure if his NFL draft status, if you will, would skyrocket if he has a great year at 1 year at UCLA. I could be very wrong about that. But if they're going to play this game, or all right, we want him for a year and then we're going to figure it out, I'm not sure. UCLA has some insides potentially with some incoming 2026 SoCal high school kids, and maybe they can get a last-second commitment. If Nico is not a future beyond 2025, UCLA, this has probably been the most interesting time in the portaling tenure, right? You go from Chip Kelly, who would go through the portal, and then he swung and missed on a freshman QB in Dante Moore. You transition into Deshaun Foster, heading into the Big Ten, new wave, new era, and he's like, I need to make a decision. And he has this view, because he's never had to be a head coach prior to the transfer portal, to the NIL. He's kind of got this almost NFL-like mindset, right? He's not loud, he's not bombastic, he's not in your face. It seems like he's been a little bit more reserved in what he's been able to tell, or wanting and willing to tell media about his offense, about his quarterback situation. Obviously, he can't comment publicly necessarily about Nico in this situation until it's a done deal. But the way he's been operating with this has been more with an NFL-like tendency, with an NFL-like, hey, this is an operation, this is free agency, this is a guy that's out there, maybe he's on waiver, this is how he's operating, which is kind of how college athletics, college sports is operated, all right? And if you've got, I was watching the video of Kirk Herbstreit on the Pat McAfee show the other day, where he was saying, I love talking to the kid, and he's a great kid. And by all accounts, Nico is supposed to be a great kid. Is the drama him? Is it the outside? Is it the family? Obviously, is it the dad? That's all the things that have been building and growing and bubbling up that led to the Tennessee split. Now, UCLA, they got to go out and win some games, all right? Nico has to prove that this image will not last, all right? He's got to prove that, hey, this is an opportunity, a new opportunity for him to clear his name, all right? Name, image, likeness. Well, he needs something to clear the bad vibes that was the last 4 days, week-long saga dealing with Tennessee, dealing with the media, dealing with his own family's proceedings in this negotiation with NIL, with Tennessee, leaving before their spring game and then coming to UCLA, potentially, most likely, before UCLA spring game, which leads their current starter, in my mind, Joey Aguilar. Where does he go? It's not like he's got many options for a new home. Can he just redshirt and utilize that JUCO? That it's tough. It's not just a tough college atmosphere. It's a tough business. It's a tough business with what they're doing nowadays to shift from quarterback to, hey, we're going to go after this kid. And they got him. So you applaud Deshaun Foster for the effort. I've already made it clear that I did not think this was the route to go, but they did it anyway. They did it for a reason. And UCLA is going to be a fascinating follow all season long. I can't wait to see how this plays out. From an entertainment perspective, obviously I'm going to enjoy this. You're going to enjoy this. I'm not sure if you get that fan's perspective, how you're going to root, you're going to deal with any drama, right? Is this just LeVar Ball 2.0, right? Because remember when he was in the spotlight with Lonzo Ball, and there was a lot of talk, he got on all the national headlines. This is Nico Iamaleava, right? And of course, I know LeVar has gone through some health issues, so we hope he's okay. And obviously things have toned down, and when people take advantage of the spotlight, they burst into the spotlight. Is this what Nico is going to do? Change his image, take UCLA to a next level, hopefully for 2 years, if he's got that many years of eligibility. If he's got 3 years, hopefully he stays at UCLA 2 years and performs and turns UCLA into a place and a destination for recruits, transfers, and NIL offers, boosters to give love to UCLA. Because I know this isn't a popular move for a lot of the UCLA fans. It's not popular. Are we getting laughed at, or are we going to be the ones laughing at everybody else for what a great deal the Bruins had for what was reportedly earlier in the week from an anonymous Power 4 GM, zero market for this kid other than UCLA? Well, they figured it out, seemingly, according to ESPN's Pete Thamel, and this is happening. Now, don't get shocked if there's still some crazy twist that happens or something weird or wacky still ends this saga that we don't expect it. You have to expect the unexpected in this situation with the NIL, the portal. With this situation, you still have to expect maybe something. You got to keep your guard up. But it's happening, and the entertainment's only just begun. If you think it's ended, no. It is only just begun. So I hope you're here to follow all season long, because we're going to talk about it. It'll be fascinating. It's even worth the drama. Is it worth the NIL money to cast away, to send off your extreme quarterback room with 6, 7 guys, the transfer you just brought in, a Joey Aguilar, right? UCLA went after this kid because Joey Aguilar is ranked near the bottom of an 18-team Big Ten in terms of starting quarterback preseason rankings. So they go and get Nico, a starter on a playoff team. That's an immediate upgrade. That's just, in my mind, it's not a fact. It's a subjective fact, but I'm going to say it's a subjective fact. It is an upgrade. Not to say anything bad about Aguilar. I feel bad for him too. But he's got to find a new home, most likely, unless he sticks it out and beats Nico, which would be another fascinating turn of events. We'll figure out how it all plays out, and this should be your home to comment, talk. Maybe it's not Locked On UCLA. Maybe it's Locked On Nico and all the drama. Who knows? But it'll be a fun year talking UCLA football because spring practice, it's going to be irrelevant until Nico arrives on campus. All right. Of course, there's a lot of defense, a lot of O-line work. But until Nico arrives on campus, spring practice will be irrelevant. And this is the story we will cover. Next on Locked On UCLA, next episode, I'm going to talk about that story that Ben Bolch wrote talking to Adai Mara, right? It's a fascinating insight to Adai's version of the story, all right? If you're thinking about how UCLA football, they had their own version of the Adai Mara Nico thing, right? In college basketball, they had that same scenario at a much lesser scale, very divisive stories going around, and Adai shared his story with the LA Times. So we will talk about that in the next episode and kind of share that perspective. I've given one perspective. We'll give the other perspective in the next Locked On UCLA episode. And any Nico updates, you should come to Locked On UCLA. We'll react, we'll laugh, we'll cry. We'll sit there and be like, well, they did it anyway, despite all the red flags. And now we get to enjoy it for what it is. A new UCLA quarterback, a 5-star quarterback in the portal, which leads to a lot of entertainment heading into the 2025 season.
Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd Gen.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverine.
Got to witness the spring game where the blue team beat the maize team 17-0. The Wink Martindale-led maize team. So what that tells you, number one, is that the offense is better on at least the half squad, the blue team. It's better than Ohio State and Alabama because Wink held them to 10 and 13 points respectively. I joke, don't get mad, Buckeyes and Crimson Tide fans. It is what we call humor, and use, well, it's not funny. Well, I don't care what you think as far as that's concerned. Anyway, definitely did not kind of see what I expected to see, having talked to one of the coaches before the game. Definitely thought we were going to see a sharper Bryce, but it's one of those things where this is the biggest crowd he played in front of, is 40 to 45,000 people in the stands, and it was a little uneven. But you have to keep in mind it's a split squad, right? He doesn't have his the full offensive line, doesn't have his full complement of wide receivers. Donovan McCulley was on the other team. He did have Andrew Marsh and Jamar Browder And I don't really think that those guys really came up big. Marsh had a really big catch. A couple went through Browder's hands that I think he just kind of mistimed some of the leaps that he made. But when it came down to it, we saw some really, really good things in terms of decision making, in terms of arm strength. There was one point where Bryce was on his own 45, and I'm standing in the opposite end zone. He threw it, and it hit the back wall on the end zone, attempting to hit Channing Goodwin. So that's what, that's more than a 65-yard pass because it hit the back wall, right? So it basically is that 70-yard throw. Really impressive in terms of arm strength and everything. I didn't think that his receivers helped him out that much. There were a couple plays where it didn't look like he really had the right trajectory there. But overall, you could kind of really see exactly what I saw from him in high school. Just a different type of deal, going up against a much more difficult defense to go up against. And I think the Mays team had some, they had Rayshon Benny. They had I'm trying to remember who else they had up front. Ike Awana, they had TJ Guy, right? The first play from scrimmage, Bryce got, quote, sacked, right? And it was fast. Took the ball, gets back there, sack. But the final play of the game was an 88-yard touchdown to Jalen Hoffman from Bryce. Bryce threw it about 20 to 35 yards in the air. Couldn't quite tell the yard markers watching the replay, but it was one where it was well played through the air, definitely had some distance, and then Jalen Hoffman got to the sidelines and went upfield. That is not just encouraging. I understand Jalen Hoffman is not a guy that anyone's talking about, really, right? He's the backup fullback. However, this has become something of a trend because you see a lot of the videos coming out of practice. You see Jalen Hoffman frequently out there making plays. He's been the recipient of a lot of big passes in a lot of the videos that Michigan's released. And then today he was what Sharon Moore had as the MVP of the game, not just because of that play, but he had a couple really big plays, a couple really big catches and runs. So I think that was really good. The running backs, I thought both looked really good. We only saw them for a couple series each, Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. Justice Haynes' first carry went for 12 yards or something like that. It was really impressive. 11 yards. Was really impressive straight out the gates. He had another one where he bounced it outside and made a play. We saw a couple really good runs from Jordan Marshall as well. The backups, because again, the spring game, you're not necessarily going to see a bunch of starters all the time. The backups I thought were very, very good. Bryson Kutzdahl was probably going to be my player of the game before Jalen Hoffman had his big long touchdown to finally end the spring game. So I was really encouraged just even by the depth there, and I'm curious to see what they end up doing in terms of do they add someone as far as that's concerned. Both quarterbacks had some interceptions, so that's not necessarily great, right? So the fact that Bryce's interception to Tevis Metcalf was ill-advised, but so was Jaden Davis's interception by Jeremiah Lowe. Both of them were very bad decisions. Both of them were pressing. Both of them were kind of in a situational type of cadence there, right? Bryce had his right before the end of the first half. Jaden's trying to make something happen as the game is winding down and they have no points. So Bryce ended up having, by virtue of the 88-yard pass, ended up having just shy of 200-ish yards passing in the game. I don't know the stats. We're just going off of memory here. Jaden, I think, had sub 100 yards passing. So that's kind of where that is. So the offense did not necessarily have the look of one that we would look at and say, okay, we're in good shape here. But again, I'm not that concerned because of the split squad. Having talked to some of the coaches before and after off the record, they feel really good about the wide receiver room in particular. I am going to amend what I was saying before, where I thought they might go for one, maybe two guys in the portal. I think that they're probably not going to. I think they're probably going to stand pat because they like what they have. I mean, we saw a really nice catch from Donovan McCulley. I mean, he is definitely a difference maker. He wasn't out there for that long, wasn't out there at all for the second half. So I think that they like what they've got in terms of the wide receiver group. And then keeping in mind Kendrick Bell, who's been injured and is just coming back from his surgery that he had in January. So I think you add more size and more capability, especially in this offense. Some of these guys are raring to go as far as that's concerned. Didn't have many big plays in this game, where it feels like the last couple spring games have been low-scoring affairs, but with some big plays on both sides. We didn't really have that in this.
The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, there are so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
If not Ashton Genty at number 6 for the Raiders, then who?
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast.
I had 4 questions that I prioritized on Friday going into the press conference with GM John Spytek and head coach Pete Carroll that I wanted to make sure got answered and got asked, as a matter of fact, either by me or others. And normally that's how it goes. You have a little bit of a game plan and you kind of see how it goes. And so all 4 of the questions that I wanted to get answered were answered for the most part. Not necessarily 100% exactly the way I was hoping it was going to play out, but for the most part, they did get answered. So off top, the first one was about Colton Miller and his contract situation. My exact wording on it on Friday was, how do you place a value on a vet like Colton Miller that you haven't had a lot of familiarity with? How you decide his value to the team, or does that have to go into kind of like showing his worth and almost a prove it type situation? Well, Tashawn asked the Colton Miller question. Tashawn Reed from The Athletic asked the Colton Miller question, but he asked it specifically when it came to him not being there for the voluntary part of the workout. And so GM John Spytek was kind of let off the hook by the way that the question was asked. So he just gave the basic, not going to discuss contracts with any of our players. So here's that answer from GM John Spytek.
I was just going to give you our answer, and it's going to be this going forward. We're not going to discuss contracts publicly, and this is certainly a voluntary part of the offseason program. So, guys are free to come and go as they please.
So that was the answer, short, quick, company line, not going to speak about players' contracts with the media, which makes a lot of sense. And then there were so many people there at the press conference that was the moment where I kind of wanted to follow up and say, well, with the veterans, how do you judge their worth? But then a couple questions went by and, a couple other people jumped in real quick. And that's kind of how it is. It's one of those free-for-alls where you jump in here, you jump in there. And so didn't get the opportunity to really follow up on that. That was one that I feel like was kind of an opportunity missed. But good on Tashawn to ask, straight up about Colton Miller, just because, again, that is something that could impact the draft coming up starting on Thursday. So that was the first question, and that was really the one that didn't get answered 100%. The rest of the questions that I at least wanted to know definitely did get answered the way I thought they would. And matter of fact, the next one was, how would you summarize this year's draft class? Like, is there a theme or not? And I believe that Hondo Carpenter is the one who asked this question and really got a good answer from GM John Spytek.
There's a lot of really good players. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get into the depth of each of our position groups on the board. People are going to start breaking that down and think that we have a tell. I think, we just came from the draft room, actually, and the way that it looks right now, we're excited about the players at a lot of different positions. And I think the cool thing is they match up with some of where Coach and I think that this team can get better. And that makes us feel good because it feels like we can get good players across the board that are going to help our team this year and years to come as well.
A lot of really good players, right? And it's funny, when he said that, I kind of smiled, and I don't think he could see me smile because, well, just again, the way that the room is, the shape of the room, there's so many people in there that there's a lot of people in front. Matter of fact, a lot of times throughout the course of the press conference, I kept sliding to the left, sliding to the right, because I kind of sit behind Hondo to an angle, and I was trying to get out of the view of his head so they could see me, especially when I go to ask a question, so you can make the eye contact. But yeah, a lot of good players. Sounds like stars or starters, not stars, right? Which has kind of been the theme that we've been talking about, something Daniel Jeremiah said on one of his pre-draft conference calls way back early in this process of the draft. So I felt like that was the same theme that you heard John Spytek speak about. Lots of really good players. So again, nothing that stands out as far as a ton of game changers, but starters, right? Starters are in the draft, and that's what you have to build your team with, is a bunch of starters. This is a really good draft for, I think, foundational players, foundational pieces to your team. Now, there are obviously some guys that are stars, and there's some guys that we don't know that are going to be stars, right? Just similar to even Max Crosby being drafted in the 4th round. Nobody knew he was going to be a star. He is, right? But you thought that, hey, this guy could be a quality player if he does this, that, and the third. Bulk up a little bit. Well, he ended up bulking up, and he ended up showing out, right? So he is an absolute star. So there'll be stars that come from this draft. There's just not a whole lot of initial ones that you're looking at this stage of the game. Then the first question that I got to ask was about Geno Smith and the quarterback situation. And it's funny because Pete Carroll had fun with this one. He had fun after I asked it, and then he mentioned it like multiple times, or he mentioned me multiple times throughout the press conference. Hey, let's go back to Q's question. And then even when he was walking out of the press conference, he said, Q, you just want to know the pick. And I was like, hey, coach, you're guaranteed to miss a shot that you don't take. But here's the question and the answer about the quarterback situation for the Raiders as it pertains to the draft.
Q Myers, Raider Nation Radio 920. With the addition of Geno and the extension of Follow, how do you approach the quarterback position as it pertains to the draft?
Remain open-minded, and anybody that can help us at that position in particular is going to be, up for consideration. You guys have all done your investigative journalism well enough to know that we've brought some quarterbacks in, and that wasn't by accident by any means. And we remain open to the most important position in sports to get right. And we're super excited to have Geno here, and we continue to expect him to be here for a while, but you can't have too many of those guys.
John Spytek right there, most important position in football, right? They brought in a lot of guys. That was intentional. So to me, that let it be known that they're definitely going to be getting a quarterback in this draft. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get one early, but they're going to be getting a quarterback in this draft. At least they plan on getting a quarterback. Obviously, there's 31 other teams that have something to say about it, right? So they can affect what the Raiders do with that position. But it, to me, feels very intentional that they're going to get a quarterback at some stage of the game, and you can hear Spytek's answer. So as much as it might seem like even a silly question, just because Geno Smith is there and the contract extension, which is why I specified that, I still thought it was a very worthy question, and you got a lot out of it. Matter of fact, NFL Network ran with that question a little bit later on, in the day on Friday, and Steve Weish, who I have a lot of respect for, has been covering the NFL for a very long time. He actually was on the Insider Show on NFL Network and was responding to what you heard John Spytek just mention about the quarterback position and had his own thoughts as well. Here it is. Check it out.
They've got 9 overall picks, and to me, they made it abundantly clear a quarterback will be used or used in some way to acquire a quarterback, even if it's used as trade bait to get a veteran quarterback in there. Let's not forget what Pete Carroll did when he first got to Seattle in 2012. They spent, at the time, $36 million on a 3-year deal to get veteran Matt Flynn to be their starter. What happens? They draft Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. Oh, and guess who beat out Matt Flynn to be the starter? So Pete Carroll, we talk about the competitive spirit. This is what he's all about. So again, I think they're going to have a quarterback in there, and not just a training camp arm, somebody who can come in and give Geno Smith a run for his money, even though Geno Smith is their guy. Another position that they didn't shut it down, and we heard right there, is running back. We know Ashton Genty out of Boise State, if he is there at 6, could be somebody who's highly appealing to them. We know Pete Carroll wants to run the football. He will draft a running back in the 1st round. We saw him do that with Seattle. We saw at USC, he had star running back after star running back. So that is a core type of player. We'll see later in the draft, offensive tackle. We know Colton Miller's having some contract discussions. They got a lot of ways that they can go, but you heard some slight things in there with Spytek talking about, hey, we value skilled players. We don't undervalue running backs, the quarterback. They got a lot of ways they can go, but I think those 2 valuable spots on offense will be fairly high on the Raiders' priority list.
Steve Weish right there from NFL Network, again on the Insider Show. He's been on my radio show plenty of times. Great dude. But again, you hear him talking about the quarterback and running back in particular. And of course, we'll talk about the running backs coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. But yeah, I mean, you heard from him, right? He feels like they're very intentional when it comes to the quarterback position as well. So again, I believe fully that out of the 9 draft picks that they currently have, and that could change obviously during the draft, they could trade up, they could trade back, collect a couple extra ones, whatever the case may be. I definitely believe they'll come out of this draft with a quarterback. That could be early, that could be late, but not going to ignore the most important position in football. That's probably the biggest key there from GM John Spytek. And the final soundbite that I have for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, just again going over the 4 questions that I wanted to make sure to get asked on Friday's press conference with the GM and the head coach was, well, another question that I asked, and that was just about how do you feel? Is there a certain gut feeling to, hey, that was a successful draft, even though we don't know, what the results are for a couple seasons? So here's my question and their response.
I know it takes a couple of seasons to actually know the grade on a draft class, but is there a sense that you can get when the draft is over? Feels like we did a really good job. We did and accomplished what we wanted to get accomplished.
Yeah, I think certainly that's the case. You can feel like we have thoughts right now that things we'd like to get done, and if those things go bang, 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 and we're feeling really good about it, we're gonna be happy with the process. But then the proof is in the over time, and so we recognize that. But we'll be celebrating, when this happens, and be excited about it. Because of the process is such a challenge, and it's so much fun for us too, and all of the people involved. We'll enjoy the heck out of it, and then we'll see what happens, and we'll try to make it come to life and be really strong.
There's usually 32 teams that feel really good about their draft after it, but when we get the right kind of people in here, I think you can feel pretty confident you did a good job, and so we're shooting for that this year.
Yeah.
So it's funny. The first question I asked, Pete Carroll got a little bit of a laugh out of it, and then in that question, GM John Spytek got a little bit of a laugh. You heard what he said at the end. There'll be 32 teams that feel good about the draft, and that's true. As I'm going through the mock draft that on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920, it's so funny. Every time someone makes a pick, I'm like, man, that's a really good pick. But we all know that there's not going to be 32 really good picks in the first round, right? We know that. There's going to be some picks that are going to look good on the surface, and then they're not going to be good. But everyone feels good, for the most part, about their draft class right afterwards. But I did like what Pete Carroll said. Like, Pete Carroll's like, yeah, we go in there and we do the things that we want to get done. We have a checklist of things we'd like to get done. If we feel like we went through the process correctly, we'll feel good about it. And then obviously the proof will be in the pudding once the players get out there on the field and they show their worth. But again, I like how Spytek took my first question and had a really good answer, and then Pete Carroll laughed, and then John Spytek laughed at the second question, and Pete Carroll had a really good answer. So there you go. I just think it's, like I said, it's very worthy questions, and just something that I definitely wanted to make sure that got asked on Friday. And it was a really good press conference overall, about 25, almost 30 minutes in length. And it was the first time that we've got to talk to them since, well, together, at least in that kind of setting, since the Combine. I didn't go to the owners' meetings, but I know that there was another opportunity. But these guys haven't been made accessible too much, so to be able to catch up with them, I thought for a few minutes was really good on Friday. Obviously, throughout the course of the year, as they start to put together not training camp, but mandatory mini camp and OTAs, will have other opportunities. But that was a really good setting, and obviously we'll have another one coming up after the draft, Thursday, Friday night, and then Saturday night as well. So I'll probably be at the one on Saturday, as I'll be getting back in town. As a matter of fact, I'm recording this podcast on Sunday. I'm going to be flying out to Green Bay this afternoon, as a matter of fact. So you know how my flight travels are sometimes. And so I wanted to make sure to knock out the podcast in advance. So again, this is being recorded on Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning, getting ready to head over to the airport and take off for the draft. So I'll be back in town coming up on Saturday, and of course be able to go to the Intermountain Health Performance Center as the GM and the head coach. They kind of give a full recap of the draft in the books.